I have war stories. They're funny. Barking dogs.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to today's Devops.com webinar, wherever you are in the world. Today's webinar is the next big thing for value stream management, and it's going to be a great panel discussion. We have a lot to go over, but before we kick off today's webinar, we do have some housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we are taking questions from the audience, and time permitting, we will have a question and answer period. If we do not have time permitting, though, we may actually do a couple questions here and there during the presentation, but please know that the folks here on this fine webinar are going to get a copy of all of the questions that came in. So if you have a question for any of our speakers at any time, please just go ahead and use the question and answer tab and submit your questions. And as I said, we'll try to get to them during the webinar. If not, you'll get your question answered post-webinar. We also are going to be kicking today's webinar off with a polling question. So please check that out as soon as I go ahead and open it up for you. And then at the end of today's webinar, we are doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our 4 lucky winners. All right, with that, let's go ahead and kick off today's webinar, which is the next big thing for value stream management. This is going to be a good one, folks. We have, as you can see, an esteemed panel of experts in the DevOps field. I'm starting off with Helen Beal, who is the Chief Ambassador at Devops Institute and Chairman of the Value Stream Management Consortium. We also have Chris Kondo, who is Principal Analyst at Forrester, and Jeffrey Keyes, who is VP of Product at Plutora, and Brian Muskoff, who is the Director of Product Management at HCL Software DevOps, and Neelan Choksi, who is President and COO of TaskTop, Richard Naster, who is the Chief Scientist of Value Stream Management and Vice President at Digital.ai, and last but certainly not least, RJ Rajanendra, who is the VP and General Manager for IT Business Management and DevOps at ServiceNow. Welcome to you all. What a great panel. I am just so excited about today's presentation. Helen, I'm going to turn things over to you, but I'm also going to open up the polling question and let folks go ahead and make their selection. It is now open. You can just go over to the polls tab there on your interface and make your choice. The question is, how familiar are you with applying value stream thinking for software development? You can choose from novice, just starting my learning journey, advanced beginner, I have a basic understanding, competent, I applied some concepts, proficient, I have applied many concepts, or expert, I have extensive experience. All right, I will let everybody go ahead and make their choice. I'll keep the polling question open for a minute or two. Helen, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and you can go ahead and get started. I'll take myself off camera, put myself on mute, and you just let me know when you want to talk about the polling question.
Thank you, Charlene. As Charlene said, we, in fact, are the next big thing in Value Stream Management. We are the Value Stream Management Consortium. I am chair. It's International Women's Day today. I prefer to use the word chair over chairman. I'm just going to be a little bit fussy about that. Charlene just did some intros with all of you, which I was kind of going to do before we did the polling. But instead, let's just do a first question and get all of you to tell us why you think the Value Stream Management Consortium is important. I'm going to start with RJ because you're top of my screen. Why is the Value Stream Management Consortium important?
Hey, Helen. So, I would say, I've been in the space for a number of years, right from the initial get-go around agile transformation and DevOps. And I think at the end of the day, what our customers are trying to do is really deliver experiences and value to their clients. And so it is really trying to understand the entire end-to-end life cycle, right from that idea all the way through value being delivered. And I think I'd say that over the years, while we made progress in some areas, certainly a lot of automation in the engineering front, but yeah, the end-to-end sort of optimization still remains elusive. And so super excited about this group here coming together and really helping the broader industry understand how to think about that end-to-end flow, and get that knowledge out there so that we're all starting to think about it in a similar way.
Awesome. What about you, Jeff? Why is it important to you?
Did you say Jeff?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. For me, the Value Stream Management Consortium promotes the fundamental ideas of an agenda-changing kind of topic. I come at this from an engineering point of view, and especially having made many mistakes along the journey of being a product guy and dev manager and so forth. It never hit me how deeply the divide there is in enterprise IT, the difference between the business and IT. It would always seem like a misnomer between me. It's like, wait a minute, how is there a difference? Because if you got strong product and autonomous teams, everything's just working because product managers driving the world. What came really apparent to me is the fundamental language that people were using. Development leaders think about outputs and processes, and we'll speak in terms of story points, DevOps metrics, and those kinds of things. Meanwhile, the business is thinking about how long does it take to get an outcome? How much revenue do I get? What's my customer retention going to be? And what a big divide there is between those two types of topics. And so much so that the frustration from more of a C-level suite escalates, because it's like, well, I'm not getting what I need out of either of these guys. They're not telling me how long will it take to get something done versus, I'm asking when will my cool new feature, enable customers to do X, and I get a burn down chart of story points. Value stream management is a different approach. Its goal is to align all of us to look at value from the customer's perspective and start to evaluate metrics of delivery, and the inefficiencies, the bottlenecks, and looking at where this is not going well, that will, by definition, align the whole company to producing value from the customer's perspective. So why am I excited to be here?
The consortium, therefore, for you, Jeff.
The consortium, therefore, exactly, helps this journey. That's what we're doing as a consortium. We're coming together as an industry to say, look, we'll help you in the journey of changing the kinds of metrics that are standard that you ought to be looking at in defining what is value. How do you define success? How do you optimize, and what are the common pitfalls that people have as they're going on a DevOps journey or an agile journey or whatever your journey that you're going through? Is that really the goal? I want to be more DevOpsy? No, the goal is to deliver better value to your customers faster and as fast as you possibly can. Maximize your resources. There's a suite of metrics and systems and how you aggregate this across. That's what the consortium will help.
Perfect. Richard, why is the Value Stream Management Consortium important to you?
Well, it's really important to me because I have been involved in lean and agile transformations for over 15 years. And I see that companies are still struggling to achieve the full benefits from these transformations. And I've been involved with value streams for quite some time, working for Scaled Agile as a SAFe fellow and methodologist. And one of the things that I've seen is that organizations who apply value stream thinking and value stream management are the ones who really succeed with those digital and agile transformations. Without the focus on value that Jeff mentioned before and the focus on flow, it's really hard to achieve different outcomes. We just become, our transformations turn us into faster caterpillars instead of transforming into a butterfly.
I love that analogy. I've not heard that one before. Thank you for that. Fast caterpillars. We want to be butterflies. Brian, why do you think the Value Stream Management Consortium is important?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Helen. It's really an honor to be part of this consortium, and thank you for all of the work that you've done to bring together this set of thought leaders and vendors and just folks across the industry to make this happen. Look, we've been in this industry for decades now, right? And what from an HCL point of view, what we've seen with our customers is about every 10 years, there's a big new idea. We had Agile about 20 years ago. It took many years. Some companies still have not quite, seen the full results of Agile yet. DevOps is already 10 years old. And we saw over the last 3-4 years, DevOps, there are many customers starting to solve that problem, or start to come to a steady state with DevOps, and they're looking for that next thing. We weren't as bold to give it a name. We were calling it DevOps Day 2. But what we started to see were the leaders, our customers in the industry, were starting to gravitate towards this value stream management concept, taking advantage of the data, trying to identify, what are the next big problems, the next big bottlenecks to solve. And I think this really marks the dawn of a new era. I think we are in that next wave. We can call it value stream management now. And I'm excited for us to come together as an industry to identify what those best practices and standards are, and generally educate the marketplace so we can all move forward more successfully together.
Absolutely. You know that I call it next generation DevOps, of course, so we're totally on the same page with that. What about you, Neelan? Why do you think the Value Stream Management Consortium is important?
Yeah, the consortium is important because value stream management is important at the end of the day. And I come at it from a very different perspective than my colleagues on the consortium. I come at it from much more of an economic perspective. And the economic imperative for getting and managing your software delivery correctly has never been higher. Value stream management at its core provides a management approach that allows all players to master this new means of production, basically software delivery. We're in a situation where half the S&P 500 is going to turn over in the next decade. And I firmly believe that Value Stream Management Consortium is going to be what's going to be common among the winners moving forward. So, and the folks have already kind of talked through it, right? The customer centricity of Value Stream Management, the vehicle for business and IT to have a common view of the world. Where the consortium really plays into this is Value Stream Management, at least for software delivery, is in its early days. And what we have to do is help our colleagues, help ourselves understand and advance the art and the science of value stream management. And that's where the consortium is going to come to play. This is critical for who's going to be the winners and losers moving forward. And I firmly believe that value stream management is going to be common for the winners.
I totally agree. And as we said in the webinar abstract, our mission is to cultivate and nurture the emerging market for value stream management and to help the community learn, devise practices and standards and grow through their use. I keep a sharp eye on the Carlotta Perez's work about industrial and technological revolutions as well. And I absolutely think that this is key to us achieving as much as we can at this turning point. And finally, in this section, over to our special surprise guest, Mr. Kondo. Do you think that the Value Stream Management Consortium is important? And hopefully you'll say yes, and if so, why?
Absolutely not. No, yes, it's very important. It's important because it demonstrates a certain maturity in this industry, that there's a number of people that understand what value stream management is. There's vendors, there are users now, many of them who are coming forth and telling us, exactly the transformational impact it has. Exactly as Richard was saying, once you start mapping out your value stream and you think about software delivery as a business activity versus just a story closing activity, you realize that, geez, time to value is kind of important, and no wonder why we can't get anything out the door. We're too busy juggling a bunch of technical debt, or the same things going through the pipeline 15 times, or we're working on stuff that nobody cares about. So why are we wasting our time on it? But backing up a little bit, when we first at Forrester started writing about this, we got a lot of inquiries, or at least I did as a new analyst. I came from Microsoft. I went into consulting for a while and then became a Forrester analyst. And I was really surprised at how little data development leaders actually had when they were making their day-to-day decisions, trying to, triage issues, figure out what's important to work on, or even understand how long it's taking for work to get done. And so it just seemed remarkable that coming from a place where everything was data-driven, everybody knew exactly what their software was supposed to perform at, everyone understood who the customer was, what the expectation was, and that we collected every bit of data we could and boiled it up to our group business manager at Microsoft and we have these monthly business meetings. And to leave that and go to these really large organizations that had no even intention or understanding of why it was important to collect data. So the idea that we came up with this idea, I don't think it's anything new. We borrowed it from other industries. We looked at what was going on in the industry. There were certainly vendors that were creating this notion of mapping a value stream or understanding how to measure it. And so I think we just pulled it all together and said, it would be great if you had something that could map your value stream and have it as an ongoing electronic representation of the value stream rather than something that's just on sticky notes. It'd be great if you could connect all the tools together to actually get the deltas between every tool. It'd be great if you could apply governance and get higher order metrics and analytics. And it's like, this is all that would be, stuff would be really helpful to, your dev manager, even your CTO, to understand, how is my team doing at an aggregate level? How are all my teams doing? And so I think that it's great. I think this consortium shows that the technology has staying power. And that what I'm really hopeful is that we produce what we think is a standard approach to what value stream management application should be, how people can understand what the capabilities are. When customers come in, they can be educated about what it is. There's maybe tutorials and other types of information to help them get started. And I just think it's great. I think it shows a lot of maturity. And I think it just shows that it's just the beginning for this segment of the software development world.
Perfect. We're very grateful and excited to have your support, Chris. So thank you very much for being with us today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Charlene, can we have a look at what our audience is telling us about their understanding about this world?
Absolutely. So the poll is now closed. We had quite a few number of respondents. So thank you to everybody who did go ahead and make their choice. The question was, how familiar are you with applying value stream thinking for software development? It looks like the majority of folks are still at the novice part of their journey. They are just starting it. That was 32% of the audience. 28% is advanced beginner. They have a basic understanding. And then 20% are competent. And 16% said they are proficient, and only 5% said they are expert. So it looks like you've got a great audience for learning more about value stream management. So that's that.
Emerging markets, I think we've said. Any surprises there for anybody?
No, I don't think so. I think that although value stream management has been around a long time in lean manufacturing and the focus on flow, it made so much sense to apply value stream management to software and really have that focus on flow and customer centricity, and as well as looking at the economics of value streams. And I see this space not only including the DevOps piece, but also in planning on investments. So for example, we should have a portfolio of value streams and then determine the amount of investments that we're going to put into each value stream. And we can change that over time as our needs change. And if we organize people within our value streams, teams of teams, then we can quickly organize and reorganize them as we need to respond to the changes in the marketplace. I mean, look what happened last year with the COVID crisis. That really accelerated the need for digital transformation, for agile transformation. And I think it's going to really drive the point home to people that the focus needs to be on the fast flow of value and getting feedback.
I love the idea of investing per value stream. Do you visualize that each value stream would run their own P&L as well?
Yeah, they would have their own P&L, but they would also have a P&L up at the portfolio. So basically, the portfolio would allocate how many people and how much money that each value stream gets. And then, approximately every 6 months, we can look at adjusting that funding as conditions in the market change. But you still need to have a central portfolio that's responsible for understanding where the investments should be going. That's where the strategy happens, at the portfolio level. And of course, we can use things like participatory budgeting to get the feedback from everyone in the value stream or everyone in the portfolio where they feel the investment would bring us the best return.
Just to add to what Richard was saying there, so these portfolios, essentially, the way we see them is, these could be could be traditional projects you're running, but also some of your products or digital services that your customers might be trying to deliver. And we often hear this, so I think it's a related construct around the project to product transition, which is, I think, and when I hear that, I really think about our customers who are trying to move from a project orientation to trying to create these value streams that are durable. And also from a metrics perspective, not just the kind of revenue type of measurements, but the metrics could be a whole host, right? So it could be that there are value streams that are dedicated towards, say, sort of improving the supply chain, right? So really, I think the metrics expand beyond sort of traditional IT constructs.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about who we are, why we're passionate about what we're doing. We're now starting to dig in some of the stuff that no doubt we will continue to explore as a team and make available to the community. But let's talk about specifics about what we're planning to do in 2021 to help this community move forward. Of course, when we launched last week as a consortium, we also launched our research, the State of Value Stream Management report. We have at least 2 people on the call that are also on the research cohort, and Neelan's been pretty heavily involved, but I wonder if we'll start with Jeff, since we haven't heard from him for a little bit. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the research, and then we'll ask Richard to fill in any gaps that he feels might be there?
You bet. So we launched a research project, in essence, the state of value stream management, and where things are. We at Platora have done a couple of research along these lines, sort of privately and not super broad like this, and gotten some details. But the focus here is looking at this at the value stream orientation. How much do we look at this as we look to go more project to product, and we look to make our development teams more autonomous in that journey and more durable? How much are we looking at this of them evaluating value at the end? And how much are we measuring, the key success metrics, if you will, and the process, and what is our mindset around that value stream orientation?
Richard, you got quite detailed into the survey as we built it. What other things are you hoping that we'll learn from the report?
Well, one of the things that I think is very important when we go to implement or adopt value stream management is to start from where people are. And I think this survey is going to really give us an indication of where people are at in their value stream journey and what they're trying to achieve, so that we can provide the guidance and advice which will help them go to that next steps without getting too far ahead of everyone and then thinking, I can never do this. So we definitely want to use the data to help develop the kind of guidance that our customers will need now and in the future. So this is not just about tools. This is much more than that. This is about the way in which the company operates, and RJ and Neelan, I think we're talking about before, about moving from a project orientation, and I'm going to say instead of a product, to a value stream orientation. Because not only do value streams develop products, but they also develop services, and they also develop supporting applications for the business, whether that's HR, whether that's accounting, finance, etc. So we have to look at the whole gamut, because the business is just not IT. But value stream management now allows them to be part of IT, part of the business, and the business runs on software. So it's really important that we are able to take this information and then develop the kind of things that our customers need, and that our cohort here can have all the great discussions, because we have a really impressive panel here about how we can help people adopt these practices.
Neelan, what do you want to add about the research? From my point of view, as you know, I've been quite close to it as well. What I really wanted to find out about was a couple of things. Firstly, about flow, whether people are thinking about flow, whether they measure it, how they're using value stream mapping versus tooling and automation to do it. And then I really wanted to learn about value realization. So whether people are estimating value up front and whether they are ever going back and figuring out what happened. Is there anything else that you're looking for in the research?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, right? This is about the flow of value from customer request to customer delivery, right? And those customers can be internal or external. And so many of the value streams that we're seeing companies implement at TaskTop are the internal value streams, which eventually do turn out to be which are the supporting areas that allow developers to deliver faster. And we've seen a whole lot of, and what we've also seen is, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the research kind of back this or not, a lot of things we say when we deal with our customers is either you manage your value stream or your value streams are going to manage you. And it really is. They exist today. And whether or not you're in control and you're the one kind of managing it, or at the end of the day, the value streams are kind of taking on a life of their own, it's super, super important. So the research, and even this poll question, I think is a really good example. It's as to the reason why the Value Stream Management Consortium exists. Folks are at different stages through their journey. And as Richard mentioned, the easiest thing to do, you can't go from 0 to 100 overnight. There's going to be a pathway there. That pathway is going to involve DevOps sometimes and CI/CD. That pathway is going to involve Agile. That pathway may involve, just cultural change at the end of the day. What those pathways look like are going to vary by organization. But being able to provide, some guidance as the consortium, as well as here's examples of other people who have done this before, and here's what their journeys look like. And having the survey kind of be the vehicle by which to help guide what journeys we're going to highlight, I think is going to be tremendous. So really, really excited. Helen, I think the research itself, the State of Value Stream Management report was one of the big reasons TaskTop joined the consortium. It was one of the real attractions for us because we know how important that's going to be for the industry.
And it's a real passion project for me as well. So I'm really excited about it. So I want to encourage all the audience to go and do the survey. You can find it linked from our website today. I'm really grateful for your thoughts. I wanted to add another note because Nathan reminded me of something when he was talking then that today we have our founding members from our wonderful vendors from ServiceNow, Iodora, from Digital.ai, HCL Software, and from TaskTop. But Nina just made a point about learning from practitioners. So I want to make a couple of points about the Value Stream Management Consortium itself. We are a not-for-profit trade association. That means we are open to all. We are already lucky enough to have some strategic advisors, Alistair Watkins and Brian Finston, Steve Pereira, who are practitioners out there in the field that are giving us advice from the perspective of people trying to do this inside organisations, and we are hoping to have many, many more of those type of people join us as well. So this is not a vendor-only membership, and it is not limited to the people here today. Membership is open to all. Before we move on to questions from the audience, we've got a couple bubbling up. So Chris is, of course, a professional researcher, so I thought it would be worth getting his views on the research that we're doing as well, and how he feels it may complement some of his own research in this field.
Well, it's going to make my life a lot easier because you're going to do all the hard work for me. I think this is great, actually. I think having data to back up the practice is important. I think that there's lots of users out there from different industry segments. They want to see how are other like-minded companies using this kind of technology. How are they applying it? What are the best practices? I think, just seeing how other people are using this technology to, as folks are saying, measure the value being delivered, measure their process optimization. Is there a way to turn all of my different product lines into a portfolio of products so I actually can treat them like, say, like an investment portfolio and start taking a much more measured approach to the types of initiatives we take on, the kind of initiatives that we kill off. I think that, like I said, from talking to clients, it's quite obvious that software is not treated like other products. For some reason, there's a lot of software that's sacred cows that should be killed. There's a lot of new projects that people don't go into because they're tied down with all these other bloated things that they have to do. The idea behind value stream management is really to understand how the software process connects with your business and how you're delivering value and how much more optimal you can do it. I'm looking at this research that you're talking about to really supplement all of the stuff that I'm doing on this, but it's not something I spend 100% of my life on. So it's good that there'll be this central location that's public, that customers can go to learn about. I feel like if nothing else, it's a central place for people to get educated, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So let's get that question rolling from the audience. So I'm going to ask Brian, because we haven't heard from him for ages, to start us off on this one. It is about multiple value streams. So it's from Martin, and in total, Martin is asking, if a team must share multiple product delivery, so they're more product project centric, do you think that it is non-viable to apply a VSM approach? And what would be your first move to start on better ground? So I don't think it's going to be unusual for organizations to have multiple value streams that are interdependent. We are, after all, in transition from waterfall, monolithic, complex environments to a place where we've distributed authority and we have true autonomy. So, Brian, how would you recommend this person approaches this conundrum?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think the reality is, a lot of times we design these things in ideal states, but the reality is the real world's very messy. And you've got both horizontal and vertical value streams or functional areas. And you've also got dependencies across value streams, almost think of them as hierarchies or whatnot. And so, I do think it is ideal to isolate independent value streams as much as possible to the degree it's possible in your organization. But at the same time, I think the key is to identify, what are those key inputs and outputs that you're looking for as a business, and then to structure the process to align to that as much as possible.
What about you, RJ? What are your thoughts on this difficulty of the complexity we have?
I agree. It's going to be a challenge for a lot of organizations. And I'm reminded of one of the papers that was published recently around DevOps topographies or topologies. Right, which is, I think every customer is going to arrive at something that's going to work for them, and so, but hopefully, with the survey that we're doing and sort of kind of the sharing of information, we can understand what are the formations that are more likely to succeed. But in that sense, I do agree that in so much as it's possible to isolate a value stream, that's great. But I think one of the best practices that we do see emerging is also the notion of platforms, right? Which is kind of having more of a platform product or capabilities, and then having others build on top of it. So again, I think the answer for every particular organization is going to be specific to them. But look forward to seeing what the patterns are that fall out.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Let's look at another question because they are coming in thick and fast. This next question is about value stream mapping. So I'm just going to say a few words before I pass it over to Richard initially to give us a response on it. As we did the poll, we learned that this is an emerging space. We talked about it being emerging ourselves as well. And I think there is some confusion in the market. When we say value stream management, people often hear value stream mapping, and they are quite different things. In my world, I would define value stream mapping as a lean tool that we use in a practical way to help a bunch of people visually collaborate on what their value stream looks like end to end. And it is quite a physical piece of work. It is quite manual. It exists one point in time. And as a practitioner of value stream mapping that has helped lots and lots of different companies do it around the world, I would say there are some significant downsides to it. One is the amount of human effort that it takes to get one done. It can be very hard to get the right people in the room, the amount of time it takes to do it. And it's very difficult to make it repeatable. And this is my biggest problem with it. People spend a huge amount of money and effort making one of these sessions happen, and then they never go back and check that they did what they did or how their value stream has improved. And this is one of the reasons I myself are particularly excited about value stream management, because what value stream management teaches us to do from a process and a tooling perspective is to create an environment where we can continually inspect and adapt our value stream. If you like, it automates our DevOps tool chain, so we can get that end-to-end cycle time and flow in a view that we can look at every sprint if we want to. We can say, right, we saw a bottleneck there, we did this experiment, and that bottleneck has now moved. So the question from Harvey is, what KPIs extracted from mapping do you find most valuable? Obviously, some may be geared towards what is being delivered, but in general, are there any standard metrics to gauge by? And of course, my key metric is that overall cycle time. That's why I found value stream mapping so useful always in the past, is to have that key metric to go after. But I believe value stream management brings a whole load more metrics to the fore as well. And I'm actually going to ask Neelan to start us here first. Richard, sorry, because I want Neelan to talk about the flow metrics briefly, and then Richard can talk about history on this as well.
Yeah, I guess when your boss writes a book that kind of is about project to product, you almost always have to reference him. So Dr. McKirsten, who's my boss, wrote a book called Project to Product. And in it, he introduces 4 or 5 flow metrics, depending on your definition. Flow velocity, flow time, flow efficiency, flow load, and flow distribution. We'll start a little bit with flow distribution. The reason you start there is you have to identify what flows. What value flows in the flow metrics in value stream management. And the starting point there really is, we've identified, Dr. Kirsten identified 4 things. It's features, defects, risk, and the brain part. Features, defects, risk, and debt, and technical debt. And that's the one that everyone always forgets about. So of course, I forgot about it as well. But the key point here is there's when you break those down into 2 buckets, it's about value creation and value protection, right? Features generally, and debt kind of fits into both. Features and debt tends to fall into value creation. The other 3, risk, defects, and debt, sometimes falls into value protection. And that's really, at the end of the day, a very, very simple way. And then the rest of the metrics are about how fast, how efficient, how effective you are at doing it. So the key point with the flow metrics are that it's end-to-end, which again is key in value stream management. It's about customer request, customer delivery. And that's what makes these metrics different than a lot of the other metrics that you're using, whether to manage your agile transformation, burn down charts, the Dora metrics, things of that nature, which also are super valuable, but at a team level or at a division level.
And of course, we talk about...
I could go on forever on this one, but I'll stop there.
We'll do another one on metrics at some point. But of course, the Dora metrics we fling about so much in the DevOps industry. And I think they are interesting, but a couple of them I have problems with. One is the lead time, because it's from code commit to deploy. And I think so much happens before code commit in the portfolio and the fuzzy front end that we need to look at as well. And for me, deployment frequency is a really interesting metric for people that are quite early on their DevOps journey. But as soon as we're deploying on demand, it becomes less interesting. And actually these flow metrics, particularly that end-to-end cycle time, become more important. So just a quick note before I let Richard give his 2 penny worth on this one. This is exactly the sort of question we're trying to answer as a consortium. This is why we're doing the research. And Richard, perhaps when you answer in a second, you can talk about the whole list of metrics in the research that we're asking people if they are currently using. So tell us some more, Richard.
Sure. So I'm going to first take the value stream mapping aspect of it, because that was the first part, and then I'll do the second part, is the broader picture. So when I look at value stream mapping, the key metrics that I'm looking for is the lead time from the request until the value is in the customer's hands. And then another big part of it is how much process time is there. This is the value adding creation time versus their wait time. And that allows us to take the process time, the value adding time divided by the overall lead time to see what our efficiency is. And it's not unusual for value streams to only spend about 5% of their time on value creation time, where most of the other time is wait time. And another important metric is about the percent complete and accurate. How many times does a downstream process need to return things to an upstream process? So from value stream mapping, that's what I'm looking for. I'm also looking for really large delays between steps. From a more macro perspective, I look at value stream management metrics in a more of a value-oriented way, meaning that the Dora metrics are good and the flow metrics are good, but in effect, those are outputs. A feature is an output, But what it's not, it doesn't tell us whether it's helping us achieve the desired business outcome. So I'm a big believer in using OKRs, especially for our strategic themes, things at the portfolio level, to see how we're making progress towards those strategic themes. And those are typically leading indicators that you would use. It's often called innovation accounting. At least that's what Eric Ries calls it. And then there are things like we have to look at our customer satisfaction, our net promoter score. We can look at, again, the portfolio performance of the different value streams. We can look at various KPIs, such as improved performance against the business outcomes at the KPI level for value streams. The predictability, how predictable is the value stream being with delivering value, time to market, and looking at our quality aspects. Are we not only delivering quickly, but are we delivering with high quality and high customer delight?
Yes.
Yes, love all this thinking. We tend to break these down into three buckets. That there's a technical view of the value stream, there's a product view of the value stream, and then there's a business view of the value stream. And on the technical side, for a dev manager kind of view, maybe they're looking at code change size, how rapidly does the code deploy? A lot of the DevOps metrics might actually fit in there. The product side is about the flow and flow efficiency, looking for bottlenecks, which we've been talking about. How long does it take from that ideation all the way through? And some of the process efficiencies get in there. And then, ultimately, we do have to talk more, and I appreciate all the acknowledgement of the business side. We tend to break those down into the, customer cost, quality, and happiness kind of buckets, if you will. The customer side of what's my adoption, what's my revenue, what's my NPS, what's my customer sat, and a lot of things that fit in there. The value that's there, the actual cost of development. Man, every big enterprise is always hit with the mandate, reduce your spend by 5% for existing applications and yet produce more. The quality aspect, I'm still mind boggled by, we have to look at how good a software and how's the quality of what we're delivering. And ultimately too, from an organizational maturity and, how are we doing is looking at the internal happiness of our teams. From a business perspective, those are super important to also evaluate in addition to everything else. Different perspectives, same problem. We just need the metrics and to look at the success of them as we go.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm glad you brought up that last point about developer happiness. That was something I was thinking about as we're talking about this, which is I'm doing a project right now focused very much on SREs, site reliability engineers, and there's people talk about toil, right? Which is, and how do you reduce toil in sort of the daily work? And so, if anything, we've learned from all of last year is there is a very high cost, kind of a person, to teams to get their work done. And so, anything we can do to improve the process for technical teams or any stakeholder that's participating in the process, that would be a big win as well. So
if your employees are not happy, your customers are not going to be happy, right? So I totally agree with them. Guys, don't you think that gals, don't you think that there's been a lot more focus on the technical aspects of the metrics as opposed to the business aspect?
I think there's a question actually from Raja. We do have a lot of questions coming through, and we're hitting nearly 15 minutes left. So let's just finish this one up. But Richard, just from Raja, I would like to hear some practices on how to establish and manage the linkage between business value metrics, i.e. OKRs, to DevOps metrics, Iodora, to task level metrics. So laddering them up or aligning them throughout the organization is crucial. Is that aligned to what you were just talking about, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important that we have the OKRs to see that we're actually making progress against our business objectives. And so as an example, organizations will create strategic themes. These are the business objectives for portfolio, and then use leading indicators to see how well we are achieving those business objectives. The other metrics like DORA and flow metrics are helpful to know that which of these outputs are actually going to result in those business outcomes. So you can't ignore outputs; they're important, but favor business outcomes whenever you can. And I'm not a fan of laddering OKRs. I think more about aligning OKRs. So at the portfolio level, if you have a strategic themes for the portfolio, all of the teams within the value stream should align to that. We don't necessarily want to ladder them, but we want to have that alignment. We don't want to cascade OKRs. We really want to align them. And if you want to read more about that, I suggest you look at the work of Philippe Castro.
Nice. I'll be looking that up after this session. So metrics. One of your competitors, Chris, came up with a paper with some a slightly different twist on the flow metrics fairly recently. What's your thought on this topic and laddering this stuff through?
Actually, I was going to comment on the previous question. I don't really have any comment on other people's research, but what I was going to say is that someone was asking a question about how do you associate or align like technical metrics with business metrics. And I was just going to give a concrete example. When I was at Microsoft and we were developing Office 365, it was basically how do we make sure that the dropout rate stays within a certain metric. And that actually is an OKR. The dropout rate cannot go below a certain number. And so that filtered down to the engineering team in terms of how do we make sure that the performance is within a certain amount of page load time? How do we make sure there's enough geographies online at any one given time so that anybody can reach the website within a given amount of response time? How do we make sure that all the artifacts are in an edge system so that anytime you download a page, you have an elegant experience and you're not waiting and seeing like a spinning thing? And so the whole idea of an OKR, which is a business objective, I don't want anyone to drop out during sign up, can easily filter down to engineering objectives in terms of the design must be a form that's easy to fill out, no more than 5 or 6 elements of the form. The form must load within a certain amount of time. It should be geographically dispersed. It should be, elegant. All of those things are all engineering objectives or design objectives or even SRE objectives as far as infrastructure goes. There's no reason why one can't lead to the other. And the reason why I think, are all here is because we realize many engineering teams work in a vacuum. Hey, as long as I complete my story within a certain amount of time, I'm all right, I'm winning. And it's like, no, you're not, because that story might have had nothing to do with a business objective. And the fact that you finished and your stuff's just sitting there waiting around for months to be deployed isn't helping anybody. It's not delivering any value. You've done absolutely nothing to deliver value if your CI and CD toolchain can deliver something in 3 hours, but the code can't go out the door for 6 months. And so the whole idea of value stream management and value stream mapping and all this business is, first of all, create this map that shows end to end. How is value created? Where does the idea come from? And when is it delivered? What are all the organization it takes? And what's all the BS that's going on in the middle? It's preventing you from getting it out the door. Second, let's turn that into an operational dashboard that allows you to see everything real time, what's going on, where are the slowdowns, like a real-time traffic controller. And then, third, how do you tie all these organizations together so they all understand, A, we're supposed to be here to deliver a business value, which is something for the customer, not to complete a story or make the most elegant design in the world. It's to deliver something quickly that brings money to the company. And once people understand that, they start breaking down silos, bringing that organization together, and then you can realize the true promise of what DevOps is, which is really an expanded role for this organization to own, create, and operate, small little product groups that are going to manage value. I don't want to talk about other research or flow, whatever. I think that that's stuff that's going to just come out in the wash. And I think that this particular research that you're talking about with surveys and educating customers, I think what's going to happen is the customers are going to tell us what's most important, not the research firms.
Perfect. I'm loving that we're getting so deep here. We have got so many questions coming in from the audience, though, which is fabulous as well. The next one I want to tackle is Shiram's about the consortium planning to bring in certification programs. The short answer is yes. The long answer is to give you some insight into how we formed. We consciously chose to form the consortium in quite an agile manner. So what we launched with was effectively our MVP. We've got an MVP website at the moment. So you'll notice we don't have things like a membership portal right now. That's coming next. One of the other things we haven't launched with is the learning. But we absolutely have plans to bring in lots of learning. We have a learning cohort forming right now, so you'll see much more information about that shortly. Depending on their roles in the organisation is a really interesting question that we might answer another day, but we are trying to establish at the moment what the roles are for value stream management and whether they are separate job titles or whether they are additional roles in a multifunctional team. So watch this space on that one as well, but certainly expect a Value Stream Management Foundation course sometime later this year. Terry asked about connecting with the VSM Consortium. If you go to our website at vsmconsortium.org, you can find many buttons all over the website about joining us and becoming a member. So just fill out that form and we will be in touch shortly about what to do next. Patrice, different types of membership. We're going to have 3 levels. There's going to be an influencer level, which is designed for individuals, and then we're going to have a partner and leadership levels as well, and we'll explain in another session or on the website shortly about what those different membership levels mean and what benefits people get from them. Alfonso, I'm going to skip over your question at the moment, but as Charlene said, we're going to get all these questions later. So what we'll do is we'll put together a blog post to publish in the next couple of weeks answering these in detail. But you've asked about, is there just one VSM pathway, or does it depend on the technology? Could there be more than one VSM in one company? I think the answers are there'll almost certainly be lots of value streams in one company. And as with most technologies, there's every likelihood that particularly larger organizations will adopt multiple different platforms to help them with this. I think we've done enough on metrics, so Shad will do your question about the distinguishing between delivery and engineering metrics on the blog. I do like this question from Osman, which is aimed at our celebrity Neelan. So great to hear from the celebrities in the value stream management space. So I love that. And then Neelan, I also believe VSM will be a culture changer. So I love having a bit of conversation about culture. It takes us in a slightly different direction. So Neelan, how will value stream management technology change our culture?
Yeah, and I think there's a really good example that that one can talk about. Adrian Cockcroft talks about this a lot from AWS. But moving to the cloud, if you just do a lift and shift, all you're doing is the exact same thing with more expense at the end of the day. So really what he talks about is when you move to the cloud, you're talking about, again, the cloud gives you a vehicle by which to deliver to customers faster, right? That is a shift in how you do CI/CD, arguably. That's a shift in how you think about delivering faster. In CEO for Clouds that Adrian wrote, he actually talks about there's only one metric that matters, and that's how fast can you deliver to customers. That involves massive change, and a lot of that ends up being cultural. When you look at the BS that Chris talked about that stops you from delivering faster, a lot of it you'll find is cultural. It's about organizational norms. It's about waiting for a checkbox from somebody that, frankly, in this day and age, doesn't need to provide that checkbox. It's about changing how you think about, are we delivering because we're trying to deliver to a plan, or are we delivering customer value at the end of the day? And those are the cultural changes that I think you're going to see, that moving faster, thinking about the customer, all of the tenets of value stream management are going to drive change around. So it's not necessarily specific that, I'm going to change my culture and I'm going to send a memo out as a CXO to my whole team and we're going to change culture. It doesn't work that way. The way it works is there's value at the end of the day. It's driven by customer needs, and that's the driver of the cultural change. And that's what I think you're going to see.
Kind of
Brian,
lumping on that, Helen. I'm such a fan of what you just said, Neelan. That is exactly the thinking. Things that are, have been thought about in sort of checkbox fashion. Have you passed this through, user experience? Check. Yeah, I sent it to the designer and he approved where I put the button. I remember back to a presentation that you did, Chris, talking about, I think it was something with the post office, and they were trying to redefine the process of filling out forms. And, gosh, isn't it inefficient that you have to go and fill out this form that the post office mailed to you, and great. So their solution to it was to put that form online, to which then you would download, print out, and then mail in, and somehow this was a better experience. When we change to that customer centricity kind of approach of getting value to the customer as quickly as possible, all of a sudden it aligns people to that unified set of thinking of how do we do this process in the best way, not did a particular page come up in the right fashion, but it gets the whole team solving the same problem.
Alrighty, so we are running out of time today. So Brian, we haven't heard anything from you for a while. You and I have talked about DevOps for years and culture for years. What did DevOps Day 2 teach us about culture, and how is VSM going to supercharge it?
Yeah, I love that conversation about culture. There's been no better spotlight on an organization's culture than the last year, when we all had to start working from home, and it really started to surface what's working and what's not working, right? And Chris has written a lot about making work visible, this visualization of the value stream. That's what we've found is real kind of secret sauce in this VSM approach. In fact, we're using our own technology within our own culture. Historically, we've worked face-to-face. And so it was a major culture change for us. And I'm not sure we would have been as successful as we've been without that visualization technology of our value stream. It's really kind of changed the culture day to day. Just think about that stand up rather than just having general mundane kind of standard stand ups. You start to surface the real impediments, the real blockages, rather than just status updates day to day. But, when I look at kind of the evolution of our space, my roots are in CI/CD, coming from the Urban Code organization. And why was there a need there? Well, it was because Agile did such a great job of taking an idea to code complete. But then we had a new bottleneck of getting code complete up through production. And, we needed testing, automation for that, but we also needed continuous delivery. And so we removed some of those obvious bottlenecks. Now it's time to really look end to end on an ongoing basis. How can we, on an ongoing basis, get away from the local optimization and get the end-to-end optimization? And so when I look at value stream management, I think it's just the time is right to make the most of it.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fabulous first launch webinar for our very exciting Value Stream Management Consortium. It's been so great to have everyone here. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and insights. I'm looking forward to many, many more of these over the coming years. In the meantime, Charlene, I think we need to make the people very happy.
Yeah. So I listen, I echo your sentiments, Helen. This was a great conversation. We had so many questions come in from the audience. We didn't get to all of them, but just a quick reminder that these fine folks are getting a copy of all of the questions that came in. So you will definitely get your question answered if we didn't get to it at today's webinar. Also, a quick reminder that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of it, or if you just want to watch it again, you'll have the opportunity to do so. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And the webinar is also going to be living on the devops.com website, so you can go find it there. Just go to devops.com/webinars, look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and do our drawing for our 4 lucky Amazon gift card winners. Our first winner today is Silva S. Congratulations, Silva. Our second winner today is Terry B. Congratulations, Terry. Let's see, third winner, Tanner G. Congratulations, Tanner. And our fourth and final winner today is Michael L. Congratulations, Michael. We'll be following up with all 4 of you via email to get your Amazon gift card over to you. So please check your inbox. And if you don't see anything there, please check your spam folder. I'm not going to go through everybody's names here and thank you all individually, but I do want to say collectively, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for a great presentation. So much good information was given during today's webinar, and judging from the number of questions and chats that we got, the audience just ate it right up. So thank you so much for your time, your expertise. We really do appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks, Pauline. Thanks, everyone.
I also want to thank the audience for joining me today. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and please stay safe.
Thank you.
I know.